All right, this is Patrick Rollens with YoChicago, and I'm here with Celeste, Karan, and Paul Sanders. Paul is developing Green Armitage at 3018 West Armitage. It's an 8-unit new construction project that is pre-registered for LEED certification, is that correct?
Correct.
And Celeste is the realtor marketing the for sale units. And Paul, can you tell us a little bit about how you picked Celeste to market this green building project?
Yes, quite frankly, I went through 3 choices and interviewed people before, but until I got to Celeste, I never met anyone who understood what green was about, understood about building materials, and the federal and local programs for certifying green.
And when you say understood what green is about, I mean, what exactly, we've all heard the terms green and thrown around and things like that. Celeste, how did you kind of hone in on exactly what Paul wanted to produce?
Well, we came to an agreement of sort of the basis of green as energy efficiency, and went from there. Energy efficiency, local materials, non-toxic materials, and went further out into the broader definition of green, where you look at siting, you look at stormwater management, and all of these aspects. But we basically started with the premise that the building should be energy efficient and use as few resources in the operations as possible.
Okay. And Paul, you've lived here in Logan Square, or Palmer Square, I guess, for 20-ish years, is that right?
That's right.
And you decided to develop just a few blocks away. So tell us, kind of how that project.
Well, it's conservation of energy. Plus, I'm a big fan of the neighborhood. I've done 2 other projects here. Because I did those projects, the opportunity to acquire this land came up. So I like it in Logan.
Okay. And it's a vacant piece of land right now, or are there any properties on it?
It was vacant.
Okay. And what's the timeline for development at this point?
We're hoping to wrap everything up by November of this year.
I heard a lot about your guarantee, the Green Armitage guarantee. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what buyers can count on?
Yes, the Green Armitage guarantee guarantees that the buyer's energy bills, total energy bill, will be no more than $600 a year for the first 2 years they own their home. That assumes certain reasonable use parameters, but they're fairly easy to follow parameters as well. So.
If they go over, does Paul kick in a little bit?
Paul pays the difference if it goes over, assuming, of course, that they're not running 5 computers and 2 plasma TVs and the heat at 85 in the winter.
How did you decide on the pricing for the units? Seems like this is a unique product. Maybe you weren't any benchmarks out there.
The pricing was a little bit difficult because there's been nothing like it in Logan Square, much less the city. This is a fairly new product in the Chicago market. So we looked at Logan Square as a market and stayed within what is appropriate for the Logan Square market, what would normally find at the very high end of the units. And these are very high end units. These are luxury units. They're going to be finished out very, very nicely.
So then what's your target buyer?
Target buyer is anyone who wants a green home, clearly who's in this price point,
Okay.
and or anyone who wants a green home, but even beyond that, anyone who's interested in what is going to be an innovative, high-quality product.
We've heard a lot about the guarantee. That's made some interesting headlines. What other green aspects of the development are you guys pursuing?
Well, there'll be, for instance, the most simple one is no smoking anywhere in the building. We're going to try to encourage that the owners do a communal composting, recycling of all possible materials. There's an opportunity for roof deck gardening that we'd like to see happen. It's a little hard concept to push because we're asking people to sort of meet their neighbors a little bit and cooperate. So it may be a little hard to understand at first that your neighbors really are your neighbors in Chicago.
Creating kind of a sense of community.
Correct.
How's it been working with the city of Chicago? We've heard a lot about their green permitting process. I mean, are they success stories?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to make any enemies upstream, but the process was no easier than the already considerably difficult Chicago permitting process.
Okay,
expensive and time consuming.
I see.
We sort of see the things out there being marketed as green as being, well, we have fancy countertops that are made from some green material, or our paints are non-toxic, or rugs, for instance, made out of recycled materials. What we don't really see is the convergence on the real source of energy use, which is conserve, conserve, conserve. What's the statistic for the amount of pollution caused by home ownership, heating and cooling? I think you mentioned to me it was larger than automobiles.
It is. It is. The building operations account for 40% of the energy use in the United States. Residential residential building operations are more than 50% of that.
Is that the single largest carbon emissions bucket in the spectrum?
It is per individual use. The individual American, yes. Their single largest contribution to pollution, greenhouse gases, all of that is going to be their home, closely followed by their car.
Sure. And so you guys chose to go the energy efficiency route. I noticed on your website, for example, you explained exactly why you didn't choose some of the flashier green components like solar panels. What was the basis for that
Well,
decision?
the point is, believe it or not, even though our prices are somewhat high, it's a struggle to maintain that price point. And early on in the decision-making process, we thought, well, let's use technology that we already know how to do. Super efficient windows. Insulate, insulate, insulate. And that drove the decision and got us actually closer to a point where this building will be set up so that in the next 5 years, as solar panels, for instance, become really available, this building could literally be off the grid.
Really? Off
Yep.
the grid in the middle of Chicago?
That's correct.
Impressive.
Not that the city is likely to allow that anytime soon. We would have to go through some sort of process to get them to allow that, because they currently don't allow for that. But it could potentially.
They've done weird things like that in the past, allowed for pioneering projects to attempt that sort of thing.
Sure, but the main point is that the building could be a net zero metered energy building, where they could, the association could be putting as much back into the grid as they're drawing from it.
Okay.
So with a grid tied solar system.
Because what I think a comparable to our $600, and we believe that'll be a generous number for our guarantee. A comparable figure is approximately $3,000 to $3,500 for people, similar square foot energy use per year, and that's a number that's static. That's a number that people have come up with a year ago.
Sure.
So as prices rise, that gets higher and higher. So if we're already, call it 15% of energy use, that leaves the whole building's requirement 15% to make up over the course of the year. So that's a relatively small number as opposed to 100%.
What could you offer as far as suggestions for homeowners who can't necessarily buy a Green Armitage but want to make some improvements or lifestyle changes for their own home?
I think it's still the same answer that we discovered for this building. Rely on the things we already know how to do. And that's, again, windows, insulation, basic electronic conservation methods, pull out your phone charger. There's a lot of little things you can do that really will affect your TVs. TVs stay on all the time. If you shut them off and only watch them when you want to watch it, you can cut your electric bill by like a third.
I think the first step in determining how one could cut their energy use is to determine what their energy use is. Take a look at where they're using energy, how much, perhaps even call in a professional to do an energy audit and discover what they're using, and then look at things like, simple things like electronics, ghost loads, which are electricity loads where, again, as Paul was saying, there are things that when you have an instant on, when you have a remote control, it stays on. It's still drawing power even though it's not fully on. It needs to stay on to be able to communicate with the remote.
Like a cell phone charger or something?
Like a cell phone charger, a coffee maker with a timer on it, anything with a clock on it, a computer, exactly. All those things, even though they may seem to be off, if they're in a standby mode, are still drawing electricity. So being aware of things like that is very important. Also being aware of where your energy leaks are in your home. You know, are your windows Do they fit tightly? Could you caulk around them? Do your doors fit well? Do you have insulation in your home, in your attic? That's an easy place to start, is if you have a single family home, for instance. Is the attic insulated? There's a lot of heat loss that goes through the roof. So just determining where the potential is for energy savings, and then starting with the low-hanging fruit. Start with the really easy things to change.
Paul, because you're a small developer, are you able to move quickly on an opportunity? Or if the market starts to turn quickly to favor green homes, can we expect a relatively quick
I think so,
turnaround?
because I think that's the core of one of the core issues with the banking industry and mortgage and lending industry is that confidence in product moving is what's missing in the marketplace, one of the things. So yes, if you were to see a stampede for green products, I think it would help all the way around.